Discover the incredible promise of an orphan boy. Heal my brother. Change lives forever. Ethan's heart raced like a wild horse galloping away from the past. At just 12, he already felt the weight of the world on his small shoulders. After a tragic car accident took his parents, the laughter and warmth of their old farmhouse faded away, leaving only shadows. Every day was a challenge, but Ethan kept his spirit burning brighter than the harvest moon over their land. He relied on his older brother Jake, a once promising soldier now grappling with the unseen ghosts of war. They shared a bond thicker than blood, forged through loss and unspoken grief. This year, the annual Harvest Festival was their glimmer of hope, an explosion of color and joy that lit up the small Midwestern town. Ethan dove into the preparations, painting scarecrows and hanging twinkling lights, mixing laughter with the sharp ache of memory. He watched townsfolk bustling about, their faces glowing with excitement. But deep down, he sensed the storm brewing not just in the sky, but within Jake. With bills piling high and their farm teetering on the edge, Ethan felt a force driving him to fight for something more than mere survival as he worked alongside his neighbors. Whispers floated his way there was a charity offering free therapy for veterans, a chance for Jake to heal. But pride often kept Jake's heart locked away, a steel door that Ethan feared would never open. Things will be okay, he muttered to himself, wanting to believe that hope could bridge the gap between them. A stranger arrived with a polished smile and cash to spare, eager to buy their farm. Think of the relief, he urged, showcasing the cherry-red house and the rolling fields. Ethan's heart danced a chaotic jig. Could they let it all go? While Jake's silence rang like a gunshot in the air, Ethan felt torn between his loyalty to his brother and the desperate hope of security. Then came a fateful afternoon. In the midst of the festival buzz, laughter erupted around them like a symphony. But when a thunderous clap echoed from a nearby tent, it revealed the turmoil bubbling beneath the surface. Jake's reaction was immediate, panic flashing behind his eyes. The friends Ethan had known for years froze as Jake struggled to regain his composure. Suddenly, Ethan's heart pounded. He had to act. He launched into a speech, desperate to share his brother's struggles with PTSD and break the chains binding them both. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The crowd shifted as the air thickened with silence. It was a moment where the past and present collided, leaving Ethan standing there, trembling with fear and hope. Would his words spark understanding and compassion, or would they deepen the chasm of isolation? Just as a rumble of thunder flickered across the sky, Ethan inhaled deeply, ready to spill his heart out into the open air, knowing the future of not just their farm, but their lives, depended on what he might unleash. Would he find the courage to say what must be said, or would the storm silence him forever? Ethan's breath caught in his throat, and his palms grew clammy as he surveyed the crowd. Each face held a spectrum of expressions: curiosity, confusion, even sympathy. There was a flicker of hope in their eyes, a chance for connection. He had their attention now, and it lit a fire in his chest. He took a step closer to the edge of the stage. Everyone, his voice wobbled but gained strength. I want to talk about Jake. My brother. He's been back from war for a while now, but he carries something heavy inside him. He glanced at Jake, who looked trapped in his own storm. He fights battles every day that we can't see. PTSD is not just a word, it's his reality. The hushed crowd leaned in. Ethan pressed on, wanting his brother's struggles to resonate with them. It's like living in a world where every sound could be a threat. A loud noise isn't just background music. It's a tidal wave of memories crashing over him. And every time I feel that silence fall around us, I wonder what if he doesn't have to fight this alone? As his heart pounded louder than the murmurs in the air, he continued, the truth is, I'm scared. Scared that I'll lose him. Scared that every day is a battle that he faces without the help he deserves. But there's a charity offering therapy, a lifeline. I think it could help him help us. A murmur of understanding rippled through the crowd. Ethan felt the swell of warmth, a unity of hope spreading like branches in a tree, connecting them all. But just as hope began to bloom, Ethan noticed Jake's expression, a mix of shame and anger, like a thundercloud ready to unleash. Jake's voice trembled as he stepped forward. You can't do this. I don't need charity. I'm not broken. His voice echoed in the heart of the festival, the words sharp as shattered glass. Ethan's heart sank. He hadn't meant to upset him. But Jake, you don't have to shoulder this alone. The words felt like stones tossed into the ever-growing void between them. Just let them help. Just know. Jake's eyes blazed, and the crowd recoiled slightly at the fierceness of his reaction. You don't understand what I feel. I don't want their pity. I can't. Caught in a tornado of frustration and fear, Ethan's own emotions spilled over. You can't keep pretending everything is okay. We're standing at the edge of losing everything. I'm scared. And just as lightning cracked across the sky, panic spread among the crowd. They were quiet now, caught between the brothers' raw confrontation and the impending storm. Ethan could see the hurt simmering beneath Jake's bravado. Please let me in, Ethan whispered, trying to bridge the immense gap. Suddenly, a child peered through the crowd, eyes wide. Is your brother a superhero? Came the innocent question. Laughter mixed with tension, lightening the atmosphere. But the moment slipped away, and the heaviness returned as Jake turned away, shoulders sagging. Before Ethan could respond, a gentle voice broke through the murmurs of the crowd. A kind-faced woman stepped forward. Maybe it's time we all listen, really listen. Not just to the words but to the silence too. Ethan's heart raced again, a different kind of urgency now. What would Jake do? Would he embrace this moment or push it all away? And in that heavy silence, Ethan realized the journey was far from over. The storm around them was nothing compared to the one inside Jake. Would Jake find the courage to face his demons? Or would pride keep him shackled? The answer lingered like an unspoken prayer on the edge of the wind, leaving the entire field holding its breath. Jake turned abruptly, his eyes darting across the crowd, searching for escape. But escape wasn't waiting for him. It hovered right there in his brother's voice, in the faces staring up at him. A sea of witnesses to a vulnerability he wasn't ready to share. The kind-faced woman continued to speak softly, urging the crowd to reflect on their own silence. But all Jake could hear was the throbbing pulse of anger and shame inside him. He pushed his palms against his temples, trying to block out the voices. I don't need this, he muttered, mostly to himself. But Ethan's hand on his shoulder pulled him back from the edge, grounding him once again. Jake, please, Ethan said, his voice barely a whisper now. You're not alone. You never have to be alone. That seemed to crack through the wall Jake had built. For the first time, he glanced back at Ethan, his eyes glistening with the weight of unspoken battles. What do you think this is, Ethan? Some kind of showcase for my pain? I'm not a poster child for your charity. The crowd was silent now, listening, not judging, but listening. And for once, in that raw vulnerability, Jake felt exposed yet strangely liberated. Jake, Ethan responded, voice trembling, I don't want to turn you into anything. I just want you to see that you can fight this. There's strength in letting others help you. It doesn't mean you're broken. Jake's breath hitched in his chest. Broken. He hated that word. Just because he couldn't be the man he used to be didn't mean he was shattered beyond repair. And yet, there was something in Ethan's plea, an unyielding belief that flickered like a candle in a dark room. What he feared most was being judged, being seen as weak. But the faces in the crowd were soft. They echoed understanding more than pity. He let out a shaky breath, feeling the storm within him start to ease, just a little. The woman stepped closer, nodding gently at Jake. Sometimes reaching out is the strongest thing you can do, she said. No one can heal alone. For the first time, Jake's resolve began to crack. His throat tightened as he processed her words. Perhaps they were right. Maybe he had been fighting demons that weren't just his to handle. Waves of shame started to ebb, replaced by an inkling of hope. He thought of the nights filled with screams of other soldiers, the flashbacks that played like silent reels in his mind. Did he really have to carry those scars without some form of healing? Ethan, sensing the shift, leaned in. Let us try this together, okay? If it doesn't work, we can find another way. But you don't have to be alone in this. You've got me. Jake looked at his brother, seeing not just desperation, but love wrapped in a genuine desire for connection. The weight of the world felt a little lighter on his shoulders. It was a small spark, but maybe it was enough to illuminate a path forward. As thunder rumbled in the distance, the crowd remained quiet, holding their collective breath, waiting to see if Jake would take the leap. Would he voice the truth that had weighed heavily upon him, or would he retreat back into the shadows he had known for so long? He hesitated, fingers nervously gripping the edge of the podium. But the warmth of Ethan's hand gave him the courage to step forward. I think I'm tired of being strong all the time, he finally admitted, the words spilling out like a waterfall released after a long drought. Maybe it's time I let someone in. A murmur of empathy flowed through the crowd, but before anyone could react, a clap of thunder boomed overhead, startling the crowd and bringing tension back. Jake felt the storm within him facing a parallel storm outside. But now, for the first time in a long while, he sensed a flicker of hope as Ethan squeezed his shoulder. He whispered, "Together, we'll find a way." And as the rain began to fall, drenching the festival and washing away the tension, Jake stood at the precipice of a choice. Would he reach out to those who stood ready to help him or turn back into the shadows he had known too well? The sky poured down, mimicking the tears, threatening to break free. But for Jake, this was not just about him anymore. It was about healing, it was about family, and perhaps more importantly, it was about truly living again. What would he choose? Jake's heart raced as the raindrops began to fall, each one a tiny reminder of the weight he had been carrying alone. The sound of the rain blended with his heartbeat, a steady drum that urged him forward. He felt Ethan's unwavering grip, a lifeline amidst the chaos. The crowd remained fixated on Jake, their faces illuminated by the gray afternoon sky. He took a breath, feeling the air clutching at his lungs, and for the first time, he didn't shrink away from their attention. Instead, he leaned into it, allowing vulnerability to seep through his carefully crafted armor. Maybe he started, his voice cracking under the strain of emotion. Maybe I'm not the only one who needs help. The admission tumbled out of him, a pebble dislodging from the mouth of a long-dormant well. Ethan's eyes widened, and Jake noticed how the woman in the crowd, the kind-faced stranger who had started this conversation, nodded encouragingly. Something shifted in the atmosphere. It was as if they were all holding their breath, waiting for him to break free of the chains of silence that had bound him for so long. "You're not the only one," Jake continued, his voice growing stronger, resonating with the storm surrounding them. "There are so many out there, struggling in the shadows. I've met some of them. They carry pain too. Real pain. Every day feels like a battle." He paused, feeling a mix of fear and exhilaration swirl inside him. "And I don't want to fight this alone anymore." With each word, he could feel the storm outside fading, as if the rain was washing away years of doubt and shame. Encouragement sparked in the air like electricity, pulling him from the depths of despair. The crowd shifted, whispering among themselves, eyes bright with recognition. Some shared nods, others glistened with tears. They understood. They had battles of their own, marked by loss, shame, or grief. In the distance, thunder rumbled again, but it felt different now. Not a harbinger of fear, but a reminder that storms can clear, that light can break through. Jake wiped his palms against the podium, trying to soothe the tremor within him. "Let us be real with each other," he said, looking at Ethan, then scanning the faces before him. "Let us be strong enough to admit we need help. To stop pretending we're fine when we're not. We're taught to tough it out, to keep our heads up. But what if it's okay to lean on one another?" A murmur of affirmation rippled through the crowd, and Jake could see eyes softening with empathy. He felt more hearts beginning to beat alongside his, a rhythm that matched the rain. Ethan's grip tightened, full of pride and love. "You're doing great, Jake," he whispered, the warmth of his support wrapping around Jake like a cozy blanket. "I just want us to be there for each other," Jake added, the weight on his chest slowly beginning to lift. "To share our stories, to fight together, not against each other. Let us create a space where no one has to feel alone." The rain intensified, but it felt renewing, almost cleansing. Jake saw people nodding, some reaching for each other's hands. A stranger stepped forward, an older man with graying hair and kind eyes. "You're right, son," he said, voice cracking with emotion. "I lost my son in combat. I've struggled every day since alone. I want to change that." Others stepped forward too, sharing their own stories of love and loss, moments of pain and resilience. Each story intertwining with his. It was powerful and raw. The weight of despair transformed into a new togetherness as they shared. The storm outside morphed into a light rain. It felt more like a blessing now, washing away the past and promising something new. In that moment, Jake realized he wasn't just healing. They were all healing together. "What if," Jake said, his eyes glistening with hope, "we start something here? A community where we can support each other, share our struggles, and maybe even heal together." The crowd erupted in applause and cheers, voices lifted in unity, each clap echoing the desire for change. In that moment, Jake felt like they were defying the odds. Together. But just as the laughter and connection grew, a figure emerged from the back of the crowd, a shadowy presence that disrupted the light. Jake frowned, wary that something or someone could derail this moment of strength. "Who is that?" he wondered aloud, heart racing again at the unexpected turn. Was this a new challenge waiting to expose his vulnerability once more? The crowd's joy faded as they spotted the figure lingering at the edge, uncertainty washing over their faces. Jake's gaze fixed on the shadow, a knot tightening in his stomach. The rain now felt heavy, weighing down the moment they had just begun to treasure. The figure stepped closer, pulling away the veil of obscurity. A girl, maybe 17, with wild hair plastered to her face and haunted eyes that seemed to drink in the chaos around her. She looked as if the storm inside her was far worse than the one outside. "Why are you all cheering?" she called out, her voice trembling yet sharp. "You think sharing your pain makes it go away?" The crowd recoiled slightly, each face a mix of confusion and concern. Jake swallowed hard, feeling the warmth of solidarity start to flicker. "It's not about making pain go away," he said gently. "It's about recognizing it, sharing it. We're not alone." He hoped the sincerity in his voice would reach her, break through the wall she had built. "But you don't really understand." She stepped forward again, a spark igniting in her tone. "You think you can just stand there and speak sweet words? What do you know about real pain? About losing everything?" Silence fell, the weight of her words hanging heavy. Jake felt a powerful connection with her anger. He could remember the darkness that once enveloped him. "I know loss," he replied, fighting to keep his voice steady. "I know what it's like to feel like you're drowning in the middle of a storm. But together we can find a way to keep our heads above water." Her eyes softened just a little, the fury giving way to hesitation. "Together?" she echoed, skepticism laced in her tone. "Who are you to decide that? It's easy to stand in front of a crowd and preach about hope. Maybe," Jake admitted, his voice steady but gentle. "But I've learned that hope grows in places where it feels like there's none left. I lost my way, just like I can see you trying not to. But it helps to reach out, to lean on others." The girl's mask began cracking. Her shoulders shook, and for a moment, Jake thought she might break down, just as he had started to do hours earlier. Ethan squeezed Jake's hand tighter, silently urging him to keep going. "Look, I don't want to overstep," Jake said, his tone earnest. "If you let us in, if you share your story, it might just lighten your load. And it might strengthen us all." The girl blinked, as if weighing his words in her heart. Shadows danced across her face, highlighting the uncertainty that creased her brow. The power of Jake's suggestion hovered, barely tethered but yearning to grow wings. With a shaky breath, she let her guard down just a notch. "You think we can just talk about it?" Just like that? Yes, Jake replied, a smile of encouragement breaking through the tension. It's a start. The first step toward healing. A glimmer of hope sparked in her eyes. The crowd stood still, supportive and expectant, ready to embrace this moment of vulnerability. But before she could respond, thunder rumbled again, this time low and ominous. Black clouds rolled in, bringing a sudden gust of wind. Rain picked up ferocity once more, drenching them all. The girl flinched, looking back at the storm with fear. See? Even the storm wants to bury us, she shouted over the rising wind. What's the point? Jake took a step closer to her, shielding her from the worst of it. The storm may rage, he explained, his heart pounding, but we can stay grounded together. The reason we fight through is to find some light on the other side. As the raindrops cascaded down, the crowd stirred in a clamor of encouragement. They were ready to embrace change, to create this community Jake envisioned, but they needed that spark to ignite the flame of comfort. Time hung suspended, hope mingled with fear, waiting for her next move. Then show me, she dared, her voice barely cutting through the storm. Show me that healing can come from this chaos. Jake felt the weight of her challenge, a daunting yet beautiful promise hanging in the air. The clouds above them swirled, mirroring the turmoil within. As the crowd's collective breath caught, Jake smiled, together we'll find a way. But just then, a deafening crash of thunder erupted, and in a flash, everything changed. What had felt like a moment of unity now felt teetering at the edge of a cliff. What does that mean for all of us? Jake thought, fear creeping in as he turned to the girl, hoping she would rise to this unexpected challenge. The air crackled with energy. Jake could sense the crowd's excitement tighten into a potent mix of anxiety and anticipation. The girl's challenge echoed in his mind. She seemed like a lighthouse in the storm, able to see through the haze of their collective despair. Listen, Jake shouted above the howling wind, raising his voice in an attempt to cut through the chaos. We're all fighting our battles. You're not alone in this storm. Let us stand together. Let us share our stories and grow stronger. But the girl, with her wild hair whipping around her face, shook her head defiantly. Strength? What good is that when the storm is this fierce? She looked past him at the crowd, eyes wide with disbelief. You all want to pretend everything will be okay? How can you feel safety when the sky is ready to fall? Jake's heart raced. He could see now the pain behind her anger. The storm will always come, he said softly, but together we can weather it. I promise it's worth fighting for. Around them, heads began to nod slowly. Others were feeling the weight of Jake's words, the power of vulnerability and solidarity. Some began to call out stories of their own, not just losses, but moments of resilience too. Voices united. Jake could feel the air shift, a subtle shift toward hope. But then came another crack of thunder, a rumble that felt almost like an angry roar. The girl flinched, stepping back, and for a fraction of a second, Jake saw her vulnerability dancing just behind her fierce exterior. Why do you care so much? She shouted, still battling her internal storm. Why are you so set on this idea that sharing pain will help? Because it did for me, Jake replied earnestly. I lost my brother and I thought my world ended. I didn't want to feel anything anymore. But through sharing, I found strength. I realized that suffering is part of our journey. Connects us. He waved his arm, inviting the crowd to join them. Look at us. Look how we're standing here, alive and breathing even when it hurts. Some of us have lost everything, but we still have each other. The girl's expression softened, uncertainty cracking through her tough facade. Suddenly, she looked small beneath the towering presence of the storm. The anger that had surrounded her now dissipating like mist in sunlight. Can you really promise it gets better? She whispered, the trembling sincerity in her voice laying bare the depth of her despair. Yes, Jake said resolutely, taking a step closer, his heart open and raw. It may not be easy, but each story helps heal us. We're stronger together. That's how we find light among the shadows. A ripple of agreement passed through the crowd. Faces that had been painted with worry began to beam with possibility. They crowded closer, hope crystallizing in shared determination. "I'm no spokesperson," someone shouted from the back, voice quivering. "But if Jake can face his pain, maybe I can too." That remark set off a ripple of conversation, people sharing flickers of heartache. Their pain merged into a shared storm, and suddenly the weight of it all felt lighter. The girl looked around, her eyes glimmering with conflicted emotions. "Maybe talking helps?" She began slowly, and Jake caught the spark of vulnerability taking form. Before Jake could respond, thunder roared one last time, shaking the ground. The storm was relentless, a furious reminder that they were still deep in chaos. But somehow, amidst the downpour, they were beginning to weave a tapestry of voices. "Let us go inside," someone suggested, gesturing toward a nearby shelter that could help them escape the rain, suggesting the perfect place to forge a tighter bond. As the group moved with a sense of purpose, Jake felt that they were standing on the brink of something special. He turned back to the girl, excitement flickering in his chest. She grasped his wrist suddenly, her eyes searching his. "If it helps, I'll try. But you have to promise you'll help me through this." Jake smiled, the weight of that promise wrapping around them like a shield against the storm. "Absolutely," he replied, but just then, another sharp crack of thunder echoed nearby, sending a jolt through the group. What if there's more to come? Jake wondered. Dark clouds still loomed above, and the path ahead was still uncertain. The weight of the storm was still heavy on their shoulders, but now they had each other. "Can we really make it through this?" he thought, anxiety creeping back as they prepared to enter the shelter, knowing they were still just beginning to fight for their light. As the group rushed toward the shelter, the downpour intensified, sheets of rain pouring down like a wild waterfall. Jake felt the weight of the girl's grip on his arm, anchoring him as they dashed to safety. The shelter loomed ahead, a rustic structure that promised warmth and solace. With each step, hope pulsed through him like a river breaking through hardened earth. Inside, the atmosphere felt different. The moment they crossed the threshold, the howling wind faded to a whisper. There was a tangible shift. People began to breathe more easily. Scents of damp wood and earthy soil mingled with the laughter of children from within. It was a humble haven, with light filtering through the cracks in the walls. Jake glanced around. Individuals huddled in small groups, some still shaking off the remnants of fear. The girl finally released her hold on him, but he could see the intensity in her gaze. He wanted to tell her that this was a place where pain could loosen its grip, where stories could bloom. "Let us find a spot," he suggested, nodding toward an empty corner where a few people were already sharing tales. The girl hesitated, biting her lip, and Jake felt a sudden rush of tenderness. "Hey," he said gently, "I promise, no pressure. Just when you're ready." She nodded slowly, pausing to watch the spontaneous connections forming around them. A kid with thick glasses was standing on an overturned crate, animatedly recounting how he saved his neighbor's cat from a tree. Laughter bubbled up, cutting through the clouds that hung over their hearts. "That was me last summer," the girl said, her voice barely above a whisper as she pulled him closer. "I saved a cat too." Jake smiled, feeling a spark ignite between them. "See? You're already part of this." After a few moments, she stepped forward, the hesitancy melting away like ice in the warmth of the shelter. Perhaps it was the shared laughter that emboldened her, or simply the realization that she wasn't alone. "Can I share something?" she finally asked, her eyes searching for approval. "Absolutely," Jake replied, his heart racing. Taking a deep breath, she stepped onto the crate where the other boy had stood just moments before. The crowd quieted, their attention wrapped around her like an embrace. Surrounded by strangers, her voice trembled but grew steadier with each sentence. "I've lost a lot," she began, recounting her own battles with sorrow and loneliness, the raw nerve of her emotions laid bare. As she spoke, Jake watched faces shift from concern to empathy. Everyone felt her story, resonating with their own struggles. Afterward, the applause swelled, a comforting rhythm that echoed against the wooden walls. The girl's eyes glimmered, a mixture of surprise and relief flooding her features. "I didn't think I could," she admitted, stepping down from the crate, her cheeks flushed with pride. Jake caught her eye and smiled warmly. You see? You're stronger than you think. Suddenly, a crash rang out from outside, distracting everyone. A gust of wind slammed the door, causing it to shudder against its frame, and a chill danced through the room. People turned to view the storm, reaffirming its presence. What now? Someone murmured, apprehension creeping back in. Jake's heart raced again, but this time it was fueled by something more potent than fear. We face it together, he called, rallying the group as spirits. As laughter and chatter bubbled up once more, a sense of unity emerged. They may have been battered by storms, but they were also unbroken, stronger together. With renewed strength, Jake turned to the girl. You've helped ignite something special. We can really make a difference, you know? The only question is, she replied, her voice dropping to a whisper, can we keep this going when the storm passes? What happens when we leave this shelter? Jake held her gaze, the uncertainty pressing down like a weight. The answer simmered in the air around them, a challenge waiting to be grasped. That's the real test, he said, feeling determination rise within him. The question loomed, what would they do to protect this newfound hope when they all stepped back into the chaos outside? Jake knew they were at a crossroads. Only time would reveal the strength of their brotherhood forged in the eye of the storm. Inside the shelter, the atmosphere buzzed with the remnants of shared stories and the lingering warmth of camaraderie. But outside, the wind howled defiantly. Jake felt the tension in the air tighten the space around them like a belt drawn too tight. He searched the girl's face for reassurance, wondering if she felt it too, the uncertainty of their sanctuary. The storm still ferocious outside, and the disheartening possibility of isolation once they stepped back into the chaos. Maybe we should make a plan, he suggested, lowering his voice slightly. What can we do once the storm passes? How do we keep this feeling alive? She looked thoughtful, biting her lip as if weighing the options. I don't know. It feels fragile, she admitted, glancing around at the people who seemed to be leaning on one another for support, like it could all fall apart any second. Jake nodded, realizing how true that was. The laughter and shared moments were beautiful but also precarious. What if we start something? Like a group? Something that lasts? Her eyes widened with curiosity and surprise. You mean like a club? For everyone here? Yeah, he replied, his voice warming with excitement. We could help each other, share stories, maybe even support each other when things get tough. When life throws us back out into the rain. Just then, the door creaked ominously as another gust of wind slammed against it. The room fell silent, every person holding their breath as the storm's power rattled the wooden structure. Fear rippled through the crowd. But instead of retreating into quiet anxiety, Jake felt a spark of conviction ignite within him. We need to stand firm, he shouted, his voice breaking through the apprehension. Not just now, but always. We have each other right here, right now. If we can face this storm together, we can face anything. The girl joined him, her eyes wide and shining. Yes, we can create a network, a community. No more feeling alone. One by one, others began to raise their voices, echoing their agreement. The sound cascaded through the shelter like a wave, dulling their fears and amplifying their hopes. Someone clapped, and soon, everyone followed suit, the rhythm growing stronger, drowning out the storm's fury outside. Amidst the clapping, a young boy stepped forward, his face bright in the flickering light. I could draw posters. We could hang them around town. And I can make a list of names, everyone who wants to join us. A girl added, her face lighting up with enthusiasm. Seeing the energy shift, Jake felt his heart swell. They were more than individuals with stories. They were a collective force, a community ready to rise above adversity. The girl beside him clasped his hand. She looked relieved, even joyful. This is incredible, Jake. But we have to be careful. Careful how? He asked, seeking to understand her caution. I mean, sometimes when things are good, we forget the fragility of it all. What if people don't show up once we leave this place? Her concern hung in the air, a shadow of doubt creeping into their growing optimism. Then we remind them, we keep reaching out. It won't be easy, but nothing worthwhile ever is. The weight of her words brushed against the thrill of their newfound mission, filling Jake with determination. "And if we all hold on tight," he said, gripping her hand harder, "then we won't lose this feeling again. Not when we're together. We just need to stay connected." As people nodded and the energy surged once more, a sudden crash echoed through the shelter, a sharp reminder of the chaos ensnaring their lives outside. The storm was relentless, but even in that moment of fear, they held on to one another. Standing surrounded by this makeshift family, Jake turned to look at the girl. "If we stick together, through the storms and beyond, we can create something lasting, right?" A smile broke across her face, filled with hope, right? But as the storm surged louder outside, Jake couldn't shake the gnawing thought. How could they truly protect this precious bond? What sacrifices would they have to make when the world demanded their attention again? The question echoed relentlessly in his mind, waiting for an answer in the midst of an unforgiving storm. The storm continued its violent dance outside, battering the shelter like a relentless adversary. Jake took a deep breath, trying to keep the nerves at bay. Around him, faces glimmered with determination and hope, yet he felt a shadow of uncertainty hovering above them all, a reminder that storms weren't just physical. "Okay," he shouted, raising his voice to combat the ferocity of the wind. "Let us think about what we want this community to be. What do we want to achieve?" A girl named Mia stepped forward, her curls bouncing with enthusiasm. "We could have meetings every week, where we can share ideas, stories, everything." Jake nodded, encouraged. "Absolutely. And maybe we could host events too, like game nights or cookouts. Just something to draw everyone in." "Count me in for the cooking," shouted a boy across the room, his face lighting up at the thought. "I make awesome chili." Laughter erupted in response, and Jake felt relief wash over him. Small moments like these were a lifeline, a way to neutralize the impending gloom of the storm outside. The storm was fierce, but inside that sanctuary, laughter could rebuild. "Let us get organized." Another voice rang out, an older woman named Clara who had remained tight-lipped until now. "We can plan activities and take turns leading them. Everyone should have a role. That way no one feels left out." Jake grinned as he watched the group buzz with excited chatter. People began to rise, brainstorming ideas, jotting down notes, and figuring out what they could contribute. He stole a glance at the girl by his side, whose smile had only grown wider. "We really can do this," she said, squeezing his hand. But beneath the exhilaration lay a thread of fear. What would happen when they stepped outside again? When they re-entered the chaos that had initially driven them to seek shelter? Suddenly, the door banged open, sending a gust of icy air sweeping through the room. A newcomer staggered inside, drenched and breathless. The crowd hushed, instinctively pulling back. "Help, please," the newcomer gasped, collapsing on the wooden floor. Jake rushed to their side, feeling the pulse of panic spread through the room. Mia found a blanket and hurried over, wrapping it around the newcomer. "What happened? Are you okay?" Eyes darting around the room, the newcomer seemed to regain some strength. "There's an old woman trapped in a house down the street. She couldn't leave when the storm hit. I tried to help her, but Jake's heart raced. Images of the woman alone and terrified in the storm filled his mind. He could feel the energy of the group shifting from the warmth of their plans to a chilling reality. "Call for action. We can't just sit here," he rallied. "That woman needs us." But Mia hesitated, worry etching her features. "What if the storm gets worse? What if we get stuck?" "No, we have to try," Jake insisted, every nerve in his body urging him forward. "We've built this community on support, on courage. If we can't help each other now, then when?" People began to gather, their expressions resolute, but uncertainty pulsed beneath the surface. The stakes were higher now, the fragility of their unity was on the line. "Let us move fast," Jake said, adrenaline fueling him. "We can save her. We're stronger together, remember?" As they organized themselves, he couldn't shake the feeling of dread but pushed it aside. There was bravery in this moment, in his decision. He shared a glance with the girl beside him, her eyes unwavering. As they prepared to confront the storm again, Jake felt hope spark within him. But the question loomed, was their community strong enough to endure the truth that awaited them outside? What awaited them in the darkness that loomed beyond the fragile safety of their current refuge? With determination in every heartbeat, they stepped into the chaos, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The storm roared overhead, pushing Jake and his companions into a frantic scramble for courage. As they stepped outside, rain pounded down like 1,000 little hammers. Each drop felt like a reminder of the chaos they were attempting to navigate. The winds howled, dragging cold air into their bones. But their resolve was warmer than any blanket. Jake led the group towards the direction the newcomer had come from, heart racing with adrenaline. He glanced back at Mia, who was huddled close beside him. Her eyes sparkled with determination, but worry still danced in her expression. She squeezed his hand, grounding him as her quiet strength seeped into him, reminding him why they were doing this. "Stay close. We'll get through this together." He called back to the group behind them, watching as they marched on, the kindling flames of hope flickering in various eyes. Step after step, they fought against the wind. Feels like they were pushing against an insurmountable wall. But they pressed on, fueled by hope instead of fear. Finally, Jake spotted the small house the newcomer had described. It looked so fragile, perched in the midst of the storm. The roof sagged, and the windows flickered with desperation. "That's it," he pointed, urgency creeping into his voice. "We're almost there." Just as they reached the front porch, a deafening crack of thunder boomed overhead, causing the group to instinctively flinch. But they didn't stop. Each member of their makeshift family remained undeterred, eyes set on the mission they'd undertaken together. Jake banged on the door, heart racing with determination. "Hello, it's us. We're here to help." The shout felt like an invitation through the chaos, a beacon of hope amidst the shadows lurking in the storm. The door creaked open slowly, revealing an elderly woman with wide eyes, fear etched on her face. "Thank God," she gasped, relief cutting through the fear. I thought I'd never see anyone again. Let us get you out of here. We're all together. You're not alone." Jake assured her as he stepped inside to help her out. The others filed in closely, supporting the woman as she hobbled forward, their shoulders brushing together, united in purpose as they carefully navigated the tumultuous terrain back to shelter. The sense of unity among them surged. Each step felt like a statement. They wouldn't let the storm break them. They were stronger together. When they finally made it back to the shelter, the temporary haven buzzed with gratitude and relief. The woman, now wrapped in a cozy blanket and sipping on warm tea, shared the breadth of her story, just as they had promised. Slowly, the group circled around her, listening, the air thick with understanding and compassion. Jake found himself quite moved. This was true community, a tapestry of shared experiences woven tighter through each new thread of connection. The storm raged outside, but inside, warmth enveloped them like an embrace. What if the clutter of the storm faded as Jake realized he held the power to create a lasting difference? What if we weren't just a temporary family in a storm? What if we built something substantial, something that lasts beyond the rain? They'd start coming back for moments like this, Mia agreed. Real connections matter. We've started a bond here. I can already feel it. That's right. A voice chimed in from amongst the crowd, a cascade of excitement flooding the small space. Before long, everyone began pitching in thoughts. They spoke with passion about hosting events, community meals, and support groups. "I'll bake," shouted someone, excitement lighting their eyes. "Let us create a community garden." Another chimed in, the possibility blooming like spring flowers. Laughter and joy intermixed with heartfelt ideas, as they contemplated touching lives both in the storm and after it passed. Jake looked around, soaking it all in. This was what they fought for, a community built on shared strength. Even amidst the chaos outside, hope had become his new North Star, guiding him forward. Then, just as the atmosphere began to shift towards something beautiful, a powerful crack echoed across the skies. They paused for a moment, eyes wide in shock, But this time wasn't out of fear. They faced storms before. They knew the rain would fall again. Together, we can create shelter from the storms, Jake said, voice steady. The room quieted, conviction filling the air as everyone nodded in unison. That's not just about us, it's about extending our hands to others battling storms we can't see. With renewed strength and purpose, they crafted plans to strengthen their bonds. They wouldn't let moments wither like autumn leaves when the winds blew again. Instead, they were ready to celebrate each story shared, knowing it would only bring them closer. As rain cascaded down and thunder rumbled outside, inside that humble shelter, hope wasn't just surviving. It was thriving. They had come together, and nothing would ever break that bond again, so the journey into the storm had turned, transforming pain into purpose, shadows into light. Each individual stepped forward with the resolve that echoes beyond the day. Now, with their hearts set on changing not just their lives but the lives of others, they stepped out firmly, united and brave. This was only the beginning. If you're inspired by Ethan and Jake's journey, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for those who stand up and fight their battles. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and share this amazing transformation. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending, and don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, we can make a difference.